We have finally talked once about the items in the series, but like we said in the top 10 reoccurring items video, there are so many items in this video game series that many great, rarely occurring items might be overshadowed by the more common ones. So, here's the other part.
This is where we rank the items in the series that has appeared less often, so we can shine a light on them as well. Will this list be based on which items are more unique than others? No. It's just that since the previous list was about the items that had occurred in at least 3 games, this list will be about our favorites that have appeared in maximum 2 games throughout the main series. We are going to rank these items on how interesting we find them.
Since these more unique ones only appeared in a couple of games at most, they might not be as useful as the more common ones, since they have to reinvent themselves a bit more if they are supposed to appear over and over again. Will all of these items be super useful? Not necessarily, but we're definitely gonna rank them based on how fun they are to use and their interesting functionalities.
Some of these might just have similar, but a more efficient or weaker functionality than other items that we had on the reoccurring items list, but must also have very unique functionalities that have not stayed with the games coming out later in the series. So which ones did we find interesting? We're the Owners of Triforce, I'm Owner 2.
And I'm Owner 1, and this is our top 10 unique items in the Zelda series. The first Legend of Zelda game. Already back then, we were introduced to a big variety of items in Link's inventory. There were candles that could burn trees, a magical key that could open any door, and so on. But do you know which item is the most, how should I say, chill in this game? The Stepladder.
Don't you just hate it when a very tiny gap prevents you from proceeding, either if it's a river or a pit of lava? Well, with the Stepladder, you can easily just walk right across. It's so simple, and you don't even have to press a button. You can just walk across anything.
Well, almost anything. It only reaches out for 1 square, so you can't cross bigger gaps than that. However, it's just so nice after walking through hoops to get around rooms and dungeons and such, that you with this item can just walk across like you give no f.
Really, though, it's not a super special item, but getting around some places in the overworld too becomes a breeze with this item that automatically creates a small bridge for you to walk across on. It's a simple item, but one that's also pretty practical. Twilight Princess had a pretty wide arsenal with unique new items and even combinations. You had underwater bombs, the Hawkeye, the Dominion Rod, just to name a few. All of these are things we actually could see coming in the Zelda series. However, there was one item that was very unique to the series, and that's of course the spinner.
The spinner is this Beyblade looking thing found in Arbiter's Grounds. It's so strange because it allows Link to stand on it like a skateboard or whatever, that can be used along the ground, among other places. It has an attack button that can be used to attack in a very short radius, but it's not always helpful, unless you have a bunch of weak enemies around you.
The best use with it is along the rails found on walls and such, which allows you to keep momentum pretty much for as long as the rails can reach, unlike when you're just on the ground. This whole thing is also basically a gear that can be used for huge mechanisms in a couple of dungeons.
It's also used in a battle against Star-Lord in Arbiter's Grounds, where it's basically a game of pinball in the first phase. It is pretty exciting to use the spinner in this battle, and the concept of it is just so unique and fun for a Zelda game, so we had to include it here. But it doesn't reach higher than number 9 because of how little use it has outside the dungeons, and especially Arbiter's Grounds.
Magic spells have not been uncommon in the Zelda series. Zelda 2 introduced a long list of them where it used magic power from the new magic meter to cast them. In later games, the spells have usually come in the form of items that you can attach to your action buttons. While not the first, Ocarina of Time did introduce some cool ones.
The Great Fairies in this game give you 3 spells called Din's Fire, Farore's Wind, and Nehru's Love. They're all very useful in their own ways, as Farore's Wind can create checkpoints within a dungeon, and Nehru's Love can create a magical barrier to protect you. However, neither one of us really remember where they are, so we usually never get them. In addition, we've never really felt that we've needed them, even though they have great functionalities.
The shining star among these 3 spells is of course Din's Fire, which is actually a necessary item. This spell also looks really cool, as Link strikes a few poses before this expanding dome of fire comes out, burning enemies in their place, destroying objects or even lighting torches, like you have to do in order to enter the Shadow Temple.
They're all great, but Din's Fire is definitely the one we enjoy using the most. We bet that this is the one most players find themselves using, and we really feel badass whenever we use it.
We have seen a great number of essential items tied to one game. Ocarina of Time has, well, the Ocarina of Time. Wind Waker has the item of the same name, Majora's Mask has all the masks, Oracle of Ages has its harp. These items usually has some sort of mechanic that is used all the way through the game, and oftentimes it's a musical instrument. One necessary item that we want to include though is one from the Game Boy game that we think has a really cool concept, the Rod of Seasons from Oracle of Seasons.
We think Oracle of Seasons is a very interesting game because of how you can change the seasons. It's not uncommon to the series to change up the overworld from time to time, but that's mostly been with time traveling and alternate dimensions. In this game though, you gain the ability to switch between the 4 seasons of winter, spring, summer and fall. We think this is a really fun and unique thing, and the Rod of Seasons is what's responsible for it. It functions badly as a weapon, but at least it's usable against the final boss.
It isn't really used for anything else, but because of how the seasons change, the overworld will open new pathways, give you opportunities to reach places you can't in other seasons and so on. It's a very fun concept, which really is what we're praising here, but it's because of this little rod that it's possible to do so, and that is why we include it on our list. There are other spells we like in the series, and there's another trio that we find a bit more interesting than the ones in Ocarina of Time. A Link to the Past has 3 magic medallions of Ether, Bombos and Quake, and they're all pretty useful, whereas 2 of them are completely necessary in order to beat the game.
Even though we might use Din's Fire in Ocarina of Time more often than any of these in A Link to the Past, we do like them better because there's at least some necessity to more than one of them. In addition, we really think these effects look so cool in a 16-bit game.
We even like the way we get them. I mean, getting the Quake medallion by throwing something into a little pool and receive it from a catfish is a bit weird, but we think it's awesome how we get the other 2 by translating ancient Highland text with the Book of Medora and raising the Master Sword to the heavens in front of these giant tablets.
Plus, the Ether medallion actually has a really cool function with how it, for a second or 2, can reveal invisible paths above ground. I especially found this interesting as a kid with the lighting effects that it creates, but I still do find it cool to this day.
The Bombos and Quake medallions are also to be found in 4 Swords Adventures on a few occasions, where they have the same functionalities, but it's in A Link to the Past where they really shine. Whether it's about shaking the ground and opening the entrance to Turtle Rock with the Quake medallion, burn enemies with the Bombos medallion, or freeze enemies, raise the entrance to Misery Mire or reveals hidden paths with the Ether medallion, we always enjoy using these.
Wind Waker has an inventory that's pretty different from what we've seen earlier in the series. It introduced items like the telescope and the grappling hook, but none of these were as unique or interesting as the Dec Relief.
It's amazing how useful a leaf can be. You get it from the Great Deku Tree, and it can be used to blow wind straight ahead of you. This is effective in the ways that it can blow away enemies and stun them, and it can also be used to blow away certain other objects or even use the wind onto mills to solve puzzles or even get around places.
What's even more interesting about it is that it can also be used for gliding through the air. This allows you to cross great gaps, but only for as long as your magic meter is able to keep up. Indoors, you can glide in a very decent tempo no matter what, but outside, you really need the wind to blow in the right direction for you to gain real momentum.
There's so much fun used from such a simple item, which we think is cool. It's useful in combat, for puzzles, and some sorts of transportation, which is all great, and we really feel it deserves its place on this list.
We've crossed gaps with items like the hookshot and Rock's Feather, and later Rock's Cape, Grappling Hook, Dec Relief, and even the Stepladder and so on. But do you know another really cool way of doing it? With the use of magnetism.
The magnetic gloves is an item introduced in Oracle of Seasons, and it's really cool. Unlike the hookshot, you can't really use it towards chests and rocks, but rather certain specific chunks of metal. Does it make it less cool though? Nope.
Because not only can you pull yourself towards the chunk of metal on the other side, you can even push yourself away from it to cross gaps. That's so cool! And this even works vertically in the side-scrolling sections.
The magnetic glove will switch polarity for each time you press the action button. This makes crossing gaps and solving puzzles very interesting, as you often have to think quickly about what to do. There are these certain rotating things that will swing you around whenever you use the magnetic glow, and it can turn in 90+ degrees to get across gaps in different angles.
But that's only if you're quick enough to switch the polarities so that you can push yourself away from these rotating things to make it over. In addition, you need to use it with giant balls that needs to be pulled and pushed around to solve puzzles, and also against Dig Dogger, where you use the item in the same way.
The item also appears in 4 swords, where you can use it to draw each other across gaps or even use the magnetism to keep each other in the air to get around. Link really needs to have some strong metal in his tunic somewhere to pull this off, but nonetheless, we think this item is very creative and a lot of fun to use.
Skyward Sword didn't have a huge arsenal of unique items, as it mostly relied on a couple of classic items, the motion controls with the sword and shield, and also upgrades. It did introduce a couple of new items, and bringing in a few ones that have barely been seen before, but none is more unique, interesting, or even as popular as the very first item you obtain in a dungeon, the Beetle.
The Beetle certainly is an interesting one. It's sort of a remote-controlled robot insect that you send through the air and that can reach rupees and switches that are hidden or just not reachable for Link. At first, it can't do all that much else than this, or being a sort of recon item to see what's ahead of you, but with the upgrading system this game has, it can be upgraded to do something more.
The 2 last of the 3 upgrades don't do much to the Beetle other than making it faster and more durable, but the first upgrade to the Hook Beetle allows it to grab items and carry them with it as it flies by. This is extremely helpful when it comes to defeating enemies or open up paths being blocked that's pretty much unreachable until the path is opened up.
The ability to send off a thing like the Beetle and let it carry bombs to drop on foes and whatnot is a really fun and cool way to use this item. It's a very unique item that we wouldn't mind seeing again in a future game.
The shadow will yield only to one with the eye of truth. This is such a cool concept. The Sheikah item called the Lens of Truth appears in both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and it's heavily used in the Shadow Temple. To put it poetically, it can see through lies and deceit.
But in reality, it can see through fake walls and floors, and see invisible traps, enemies, and just a bunch of hidden objects that are invisible to the naked eye. Its use fits so well with the creepy locations like the Shadow Temple and the bottom of the well, in addition to the Haunted Wasteland and some things inside the Spirit Temple.
You don't actually see Link using this item, but the screen will show a circle where every invisible thing within its sight will be revealed to the player. This makes all of the atmosphere so much more creepy in the settings it's used in Ocarina of Time.
It's a little bit different in Majora's Mask though, as you get it in the storyline with the Gorons, and you need it to see Darmani, the Goron leader that has died and now only lives on as an invisible ghost. It's also used for a couple of other side quests, like with the wounded soldier in the Akana region who will give you the stone mask.
It's in the prequel where it really shines, and I, personally, really love this item. I love its concept, I love how it works, and I love using it whenever I need to. The thing is, it's actually optional to the game. Apparently, you don't really need it, but you'll have to be really good at the game if you want to make it through without it. As it's really helpful to find your way through the Shadow Temple, defeat Bongo Bongo, and even make it through the Haunted Wasteland. Me though? I love using it, and I've never really tried going without it. This is definitely an item I hope and think should make an appearance in Breath of the Wild. Come on, you have the gamepad, the whole focus on the Sheikah tribe. and the Sheikah Slate. This needs to happen.
Throughout the series, we've seen a lot of different soldiers carrying swords and shields, daggers and knives, spears and so on. For the most part, we've been able to wield these weapons ourselves, but there's one kind of soldier we've seen a ton of times using an item we've never been able to use ourselves. I have always wanted to be a ball and chain soldier, haven't you?
No, not really. That's why it came as such a surprise to me when I realized I could pick up the ball and chain after defeating Darkhammer and Snowpeak Ruins in Twilight Princess. I can actually use this heavy weapon now? That's awesome!
Right? You can use this huge heavy spiked ball and swing it at enemies and destroy objects. It can destroy so many things pretty easily. Whenever you throw it, you damage the things you hit, but Link needs to pull it back, so when he does, he actually does damage to whatever's still in its path. That is awesome.
This can kill enemies like chill foes or even re-deads very easily. The ball and chain is also the only item besides cannons that can destroy freezards.
It can also break ice that's preventing you from proceeding through a dungeon like in Snowpeak Ruins. In addition to this, it's also used in a fun way against the boss Blissetta.
The one downside to this item is the weight. It's obviously very heavy, so it's not really a swift weapon, as Link has to spend some time gaining momentum, throwing it and pulling it back in. In addition, he walks very slowly as long as he carries it in his own two arms.
Nonetheless, the ball and chain is a freaking wrecking ball, used to destroy anything that crosses its path. We think this is an amazing item to use in combat, and we really wouldn't mind seeing this in a Breath of the Wild either, especially now that the variety of weapons is bigger than ever. It should definitely be there as well, but as of right now, the ball and chain is our favorite unique item in the series.
Those were our 10 favorite items that have appeared in less than 3 games in the main series. Did you like the list? If so, that like button is exactly what you should hit. If you have some comments about the video, anything at all, just leave it in the comment section.
And a subscription is always appreciated. And if you do decide to do it, then you won't miss out on our next video, which is the top 5 mini dungeon themes. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you then.